Dr. Greaves stood at Miranda's door, his presence an unsettling disruption to the fragile balance of her evening. She hadn't expected him, and yet, after his email, some part of her knew this meeting was inevitable. The porch light cast long shadows over his sharp features, his weary eyes betraying the weight of knowledge he carried. Miranda hesitated before opening the door. A thousand thoughts raced through her mind: indignation, curiosity, the lingering sting of past encounters. But in the end, curiosity won. She pulled the door open just enough to meet his gaze. "Dr. Greaves," she said, cool but measured. "Miranda." He gave a tired smile. "May I come in?" She considered denying him, making him stand in the cold. But what good would that do? If he was here, it wasn't for pleasantries. With a sigh, she stepped aside and gestured for him to enter. He moved with a careful deliberation, as if he expected the house itself to recoil at his intrusion. Once inside, Miranda folded her arms, watching as Greaves took in her collection of books, the scattered notes on her desk. His gaze lingered on the open tome beside her chair. "I see you've been busy," he murmured. "Not as busy as I'd like to be." Her tone was pointed. "Though I suppose you already knew that." Greaves exhaled heavily, rubbing a hand over his face. "I owe you an apology. I was unfair to you. Too harsh. I dismissed your work when I should have encouraged it." Miranda's fingers twitched. She wasn't sure what she had expected, but an apology had not been on the list. She narrowed her eyes. "What changed?" His expression darkened. "A great many things." He reached into his coat and produced a small, leather-bound notebook, aged and weathered with use. He set it on her table, his fingers resting on it for a moment longer than necessary. "This belonged to a member of the Silent Order," he said softly. "One of the last known records before they disappeared." Miranda's breath caught. Her gaze flickered between Greaves and the book. She wanted to dismiss it, to push it away as another wild goose chase. But something about the way he held himself, the weight of his words, this wasn't some academic theory. This was real. She swallowed. "Why bring it to me?" "Because you're the only one who might understand what's in it." He looked at her with something close to hope. "And because, if what I suspect is true, we don't have much time." A silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken fears. Miranda hesitated, then slowly reached for the notebook. The leather was worn beneath her fingertips, the faint scent of ink and age rising from its pages. As she flipped it open, the first line sent a chill down her spine. "The gods have never left us. They only wait for the door to be opened." Chapter 27. Miranda exhaled sharply and closed the notebook for a moment, rubbing her temples. The weight of Dr. Greaves's words still clung to her like cobwebs, sticky and impossible to shake off. She had been so engrossed in the notebook, flipping through its brittle pages and trying to decipher the careful script, that she had lost track of everything else. The silence in her shop felt different, thicker. She looked up, expecting to see Greaves still standing there, waiting for her reaction. But he was gone. The chair he had occupied sat empty, the air around it undisturbed. No creak of the floorboards, no murmur of departure. Just gone. A chill coiled around her spine. She prided herself on her awareness, on her ability to notice things others didn't. But had she really been so absorbed that she had missed him leaving, or had something else happened? The unsettling thought settled in her gut like a stone. She stood, peering toward the door as if expecting to see his silhouette against the street lamp glow outside. Nothing. The evening stretched on, indifferent to her unease. She shook herself. This was ridiculous. A man leaving a shop without saying goodbye wasn't exactly a supernatural event. She had more important things to focus on. Returning to the notebook, she ran her fingers over the cracked leather cover. It felt ancient in a way beyond age, like something that had witnessed too much and carried the burden of knowing. She turned the pages carefully, scanning the delicate handwriting. Symbols interspersed the script. Some she recognized from her studies, others she did not. The name Ephraim appeared in the margins more than once, always underlined. She frowned. That name had come up before, hadn't it? And then there were the passages that felt less like historical record and more like warning. Words like the silent order and the veil of unmaking stood out in bold, their meanings obscure but ominous. Her fingers trembled slightly as she traced one particular phrase. Those who seek beyond the threshold must be prepared for the weight of knowing. What had Greaves truly given her? A relic of history? Or a doorway? Miranda swallowed, forcing down the unease that curled at the edges of her thoughts. She had set out to challenge history, to force academia to acknowledge truths it had long buried. But Greaves, his words, his warnings, hinted at something so much bigger than she had ever dared consider. This wasn't just about revising historical understanding. This was something else, something vast, something dangerous. And now she was in the middle of it. Miranda took a steadying breath. The only way out was through. She turned the page. Chapter 28. Doug Weapon stood in front of his bedroom mirror, arms crossed, staring at his reflection as if it might reveal some hidden wisdom about the night ahead. His mind was a hurricane, fragments of lore from forgotten forums, cryptic passages buried in ancient manuscripts, the maddening breadcrumbs left by Pillar 83 and Ephraim. It all swirled together, an intricate puzzle missing just enough pieces to drive him insane. And then, of course, there was Miranda. He had sent her a couple of texts throughout the day, casual check-ins wrapped in a thin layer of anticipation. She had responded, but only once. Store closes at 8 tonight. Meet me then. That was it. No follow-up, no emojis or punctuation to hint at her tone. Just a message that could mean anything, or everything. Doug sighed and turned away from the mirror, stepping over a pile of laundry as he moved to his closet. What did one wear to an evening spent unraveling the potential secrets of a long-lost civilization with a woman who occupied an uncomfortable space between friend and enigma? A button-down? Too formal? A band t-shirt? Too casual? Something in between? What even was in between? He pulled on a dark gray hoodie, then immediately ripped it off. Too sloppy. He grabbed a plain black Henley, but the moment he put it on, he felt like he was trying too hard. Back to the hoodie? No, that felt like giving up. He eventually settled on a fitted navy sweater, comfortable but not careless, thoughtful but not desperate. Shoes were another battle. Boots felt like overcompensating, sneakers too juvenile. He compromised with a pair of well-worn leather shoes that made him feel like he at least had some semblance of a grip on adulthood, even if the universe was determined to prove otherwise. Doug exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. He was losing his mind. It wasn't a date. It was a meeting, a discussion, a sharing of knowledge. And yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was something more. Something bigger than the words exchanged over old books and internet rabbit holes. Something that, once set in motion, couldn't be undone. Grabbing his jacket, he left his apartment, locking the door behind him. Whatever was waiting for him at the bookstore tonight, he would face it head on. Doug arrived at Miranda's bookstore 5 minutes before closing, the bell over the door jingling softly as he stepped inside. The place was dimly lit, the scent of old paper and incense thick in the air. He immediately spotted Miranda behind the counter, speaking in low tones with an older man, the last customer of the night. As Doug approached, Miranda caught sight of him and, without breaking her conversation, lifted a single finger to her lips, a clear signal to remain silent. Doug halted mid-step, a slight chill running down his spine. There was something about her expression, the calculated calmness in her eyes, that sent his thoughts into overdrive. Was this some kind of joke? Had she had a rough day and just wanted quiet? Or was this something more? A warning? A test? His mind whirled back to the cryptic message she had sent earlier. The store closes at 8 tonight. Meet me then. It had left him unsettled all day, and now, standing here, that unease only deepened. The customer, a man with a wispy gray beard and a moth-eaten tweed jacket, nodded at whatever Miranda had just said, mumbled something in return, and turned for the door. Miranda followed him, her every movement deliberate, her body language exuding an almost exaggerated normalcy. Doug watched as she flipped the sign on the door to closed and locked it. The bolt clicked into place with an audible finality that made his stomach tighten. She turned back to him, holding up a hand again. Wait. Doug obeyed, though the tension inside him was growing. He stood there, watching her as she methodically went through the motions of closing up for the night. Snuffing out a candle near the register, straightening a pile of books, checking the latch on a display case. Each action deliberate, careful, as if she were ensuring nothing had been disturbed, that everything was as it should be. Doug's thoughts spiraled. Was she expecting someone to be watching? Was she afraid? He had spent the last 24 hours buried in a tangled web of forgotten deities, ancient orders, and secret knowledge that stretched back before recorded history. Was Miranda already neck-deep in something beyond both of them? Had she found something in Greaves's notebook that changed everything? His hands twitched at his sides, but he forced himself to stay still, his heart pounding in his ears. He wanted to say something, to break the silence, but her body language told him to wait. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Miranda crossed the room to him, her movements smooth but brisk. Without a word, she reached out and took his hand. Her grip was firm, her fingers warm against his palm, but she still didn't speak. Instead, she led him toward the back of the shop, to the narrow staircase that led up to her apartment. Doug swallowed hard, his pulse hammering in his throat. This wasn't just a casual after-hours chat. This was something else, something bigger. Step by step, they ascended, Miranda's grip never loosening. When they reached the top, she pushed open the door to her apartment and pulled him inside. The space was dimly lit, stacks of books piled on nearly every surface, but Doug's eyes went immediately to her desk. His breath caught in his throat. Scattered across the wooden surface were pages from the notebook Greaves had given her, open books filled with diagrams and scribbled notes, and in the center, something that made his stomach drop. A single sheet of parchment, yellowed with age, its surface covered in a dense, almost inhuman script. The symbols seemed to twist as he looked at them, as if alive, shifting in his peripheral vision. And next to it, scrawled in red ink on a torn scrap of paper, was a message. A single line that sent a shiver down his spine. We are listening. Here's chapter 29 in full. Let me know if you want any tweaks or if you're ready to roll into the next chapter. Chapter 30. Doug turned to Miranda, his mind still catching up with what he was seeing on her desk. Scattered across the surface were stacks of old books, handwritten notes, and Dr. Greaves's journal lying open to a page marked with a scrap of paper. The air in the apartment felt charged, as if the very walls held their breath in anticipation. Miranda finally broke the silence. Doug, I've been going through everything since last night. This journal, it's not just some old scholar's ramblings. Greaves knew something, knows something, and the way he just vanished before I could even thank him, like a damn ghost. It's unsettling. Doug nodded, stepping closer, his fingers brushing the edges of a notebook. I get that. But look, I spent last night deep diving into the whole dwelling gods thing. And Trismegistus? It's all connected. The Emerald Tablets, the Bahama Anomaly, the Silent Order. They're not just myths, Miranda. There's something here, something real. Miranda's eyes lit up. That's what I'm saying. The Hermetic principles. Think about it. If there was an ancient order preserving knowledge, who better than them? And if Greaves is leading us towards something tangible, something historical, then this could rewrite everything we know about history. Doug exhaled sharply. And that means the official story is bullshit. The anomaly isn't just erosion, is it? Miranda shook her head, flipping to a page in Greaves's journal. Read this. Doug leaned in. The handwriting was sharp, deliberate. The order never truly vanished. They only went deeper. They are the last keepers of the true past, and they will do anything to keep it buried. The truth lies not just in what is written, but in what is whispered between the lines. Doug felt a chill crawl up his spine. Shit. Miranda pressed forward, flipping through her own notes. The Order isn't just a secret society, it's an active force, a group working behind the scenes to suppress what we're starting to uncover. Doug swallowed hard. Which means Greaves. He isn't just some eccentric professor, he's playing a long game. They locked eyes, the weight of the realization settling between them. Their conversation had become breathless, frenetic, two minds colliding and igniting in real time. They had been drawn into something far beyond their original curiosity. This was more than a historical puzzle. This was a secret war, and they had only begun to scratch the surface. Chapter 30 is locked in. Doug and Miranda are piecing it all together, and the stakes just got even higher. Let me know how you want to move forward. Doug exhaled, trying to slow his racing thoughts as Miranda finally let go of his hand and gestured for him to sit. The small apartment above the bookstore was dimly lit, a single desk lamp casting long, flickering shadows across the walls, illuminating the old journal Greaves had given her. Miranda sat across from him, folding her arms. All right, Doug, I think it's time we put everything we know on the table. Doug nodded, still absorbing the moment. Okay, let's start with what you found. What's in the notebook? Miranda opened it carefully, running her fingers over the brittle pages. It's a first-hand account, some kind of field notes from an unknown researcher. The script is archaic, but Greaves swears it's authentic. It discusses the Emerald Tablets, the 7 Hermetic Principles, and something called the Silent Order of the Dwelling Gods. I initially dismissed it as just another esoteric text. But then... Doug leaned forward. Then what? She turned to a passage near the middle. Then I found this. Doug's eyes flicked over the handwritten text. The Order whispers in silence, their knowledge sealed in stone. Their path crosses the sands of the Bahama anomaly, guarded by the one who stands between epochs. Beware the shade of Ephraim. His knowledge is a door, but doors can open both ways. Doug swallowed hard. Ephraim. Miranda nodded, her lips pressed into a tight line. You mentioned him, didn't you? Last night, in your research. Doug ran a hand through his hair. Yeah, I stumbled across references to him deep in the internet archives. The name kept surfacing in weird, fragmented posts from years ago. Some were linked to Pillar 83, but others... They were buried in old forums, encrypted documents, places you wouldn't normally find unless you were really digging. Like he was a ghost, trying to leave a breadcrumb trail. Miranda's fingers drummed on the desk. Greaves knew I would find this, which means he wanted us to put this together. But why? And who is Ephraim, really? Doug leaned back, shaking his head. I don't know. But whoever, or whatever he is, he's been watching, leaving pieces for us to find. The question is, do we follow? Miranda met his gaze, and for the first time that night, Doug saw something unshakable in her expression. Not just curiosity, conviction. We don't have a choice, she said. We're in this now. A heavy silence fell between them, thick with the weight of something ancient and inevitable. The enigma of Ephraim had found them, and they had only begun to scratch the surface.